was an interesting first day of training camp under Zach Taylor, wasn't it? Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com and the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. I hope you are enjoying your weekend. I hope that you all have gotten over the initial shock of some news that came across the wire as Bengals opened their first training camp under Zach Taylor. So we've got a lot to talk about today with the Bengals opening camp. There's some good news, some bad news, and I guess we got to start with the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is the injury to A.J. Green. He was going out for a deep pass. Not a little bit of contact on the play with him and Dre Kirkpatrick, but he came down, I guess, awkwardly on his ankle. Reports as of today, Saturday afternoon, evening, have him. Initial reports have it being a sprained ankle. How severe that is, we don't know. The good news is it was not a knee. It was not something that appears to be season-ending for the time being. They're doing additional testing in the form of MRIs and things of that nature. So, that'll still need to play out. But for now, it seems as if this might be more of a week-to-week type of thing with a sprain. There will be more news going forward, and we will be sure on CincyJungle.com and the Orange and Black Insider podcast, we'll be sure to update you as we know more. But that headline dominated the news for the Bengals as they opened up camp, and it's kind of a disappointing headline, if you will, because across the state everybody's gushing about the Cleveland Browns and OBJ joining them and everything, and unfortunately, they're getting all the glowing reports, whereas this now is something that's coming across the wire for the Bengals, and it's not good news. It could be a lot worse as of today. Still, things are yet to play out, but a little bit disappointing, and it kind of puts a dark cloud over everything going forward here. Now, to moving on from the A.J. Green news, again, just to kind of update you, A.J. Green came down awkwardly on his ankle. It didn't look totally severe when he came down on the ankle, at least from the video I saw. They had him iced. He was on crutches. He was taken off on a cart, all that stuff. It seems as if all of that stuff was kind of precautionary, but we will see. There was a report that came out. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network says he cited a source saying that they think it's a sprain. They're going to do more MRIs and more testing to make sure, but they think it's a sprain, and they'll take it real easy on him during training camp. That probably should have been the case anyway. But I mean, you gotta let guys play. I understand. So there's that, and then Joe Daneman, a local reporter, talked to Joe Mixon after practice, and kept asking about AJ. And Joe Mixon said he's confident that AJ will be fine after asking him a number of times. So we'll see kind of how it plays out. But for now, it looks as if this might be a week-to-week thing with AJ Green. Again, I'm Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com and the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. Talking about training camp, unfortunately, the dominant headline has been about A.J. Green and his injury to his ankle. But there were other headlines, one of which is Andre Smith. The team, a couple of days before camp opened, decided to bring back Andre Smith. A little bit of a surprise based on some of the names that are out there. Donald Penn was a name, and now he appears to be heading to Washington because Trent Williams, their all-pro offensive tackle there, is sitting out camp. He wants a new contract. He wants to be traded, whatever the case may be there. So that's, interesting that the Bengals decided to not go after some of the names on the market, and they went after a guy that they know, Andre Smith. The cynics out there would probably tell you that not much has probably changed because the team has decided to bring back a familiar face instead of, going out and doing the outside forays and free agency. But it is a guy that provides depth. He's not going to start. He has experience playing both tackle spots. He even worked a little bit at guard this last time around. So, he could play a few spots on the line in a pinch. If Bobby Hart struggles, maybe they turn to Andre Smith. The metrics and the PFF scores and all of that don't really point to much of an improvement from Bobby Hart to Andre Smith if that ends up happening. But for now, the Bengals bolstered their tackle depth, if you want to call it that, by bringing back Andre Smith. It is the 5th contract by my count that the big offensive tackle has signed with the Bengals. 2009, obviously, his rookie year. 2003, I believe, was the next one. And then, I'm sorry, 2013, not 2003. And then he signed a couple more in 16, I think it was 17, 18, and then this year. So 2009, 2012, or 2013 rather, and then a couple more these past few years, a couple little one-year deals, and he is back with the team for essentially the 5th time. He has signed a contract with the Bengals. So Andre Smith is back, and he was out there working. Also on the offensive line, a couple of different moves there. Billy Price appears to be nursing a minor injury as well, so that's not good news. Trey Hopkins is getting starting center reps. He was a guy they brought back on a free agent deal this offseason, a guy that is versatile and can play a lot of spots along the offensive line as well. So he was kind of getting first-team reps at center with Billy Price out of the lineup. That was a little interesting. And then, of course, the left guard vacancy that was left with Clint Bowling's retirement, that also that's a big hole to fill there. And John Jerry, the veteran that the Bengals brought in during mini camps once things were not going well with Clint Bowling, he is a guy that was getting starting snaps. John Jerry, the veteran, who he did not play football last year. So he has gone from not playing football to potentially being a starter on this team. And he is a guy that has had a decent career, nothing stellar. Former mid-round pick, and he's played a little bit. He played for the Dolphins, played for the Giants most recently, and now he's getting starting snaps for the Bengals. So all of that is pretty interesting in terms of what's transpired on. It's kind of a busy and not fun, not as fun as we had hoped. A first day of training camp under new coach Zach Taylor. I put out a tweet that I felt very bad for the new head coach. I felt bad for AJ Green getting hurt after being on injured reserve and all of that, but I felt bad for the new head coach given the fact that he lost Clint Bowling to retirement. He lost his first-round pick, Jonah Williams, to an injury. He had issues with searching for assistant coaches. That's not fun. And then on your first day of camp, after all this stuff has transpired, you're hoping to kind of turn a new page, start the quote-unquote new day, and your star player gets hurt. Probably not season-ending, but out for the foreseeable future, you would think, with a sprained ankle is what it looks like. So not really as our friend Mike Donahue in the chat here says, not how today was supposed to go. That sums it up pretty well. I'm Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com talking to you about training camp opening for the Cincinnati Bengals. You can keep it to CincyJungle.com for all the news, opinions, analysis, all of that. We help to bring you the AJ Green news and all of that today. Some other things that were at least on the positive side, and some things that we saw from the Bengals in training camp. Carl Lawson was on the field today. He was returning from the ACL surgery from last year. Billy Price was seen working on a bike, so he's getting some work in, kind of on the rehab side. So there's some stuff out there. Unfortunately, not a ton of chatter about big plays. And granted, it's day one. You're not going to get a whole bunch of wow plays unless, of course, you are a media member that is covering the Cleveland Browns and are just frothing over everything that's happening there. But you're not going to get a ton of stuff, in terms of big plays or guys who impressed after one practice. But for the most part, it seemed as if guys looked good. You were getting some guys back on the field. I saw some videos of Tyler Eifert kind of running around a little bit. So obviously they're probably limiting his work as well as Carl Lawson. So, that's kind of what's happening right now in Bengals training camp as they kicked it off on Saturday. Matthew Tortuyo says, I would say disparaging. Yeah, not good news. This is, and I guess this is kind of how you have to look at it. Chris Larmore says, would rather have 100% AJ than rushing back at 75%. Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, and I don't think it's really the fault of anybody, because it was kind of a weird injury that AJ Green suffered last year, but that's kind of what happened a little bit last year with the toe issue. AJ Green came back, and they had him sit for a handful of games. He came back when really at a critical point in the season where they were trying to rescue the season after a real bad skid. And, one play and he hurts, and then he hurts his toe again. He's done for the year and needs surgery. So we don't know the extent of the injury yet. It seems as if it's a sprain. So that's not surgery. That's not a break. It's not anything like that. So it seems as if he'll be okay. He'll be week to week. If it's a high ankle sprain, that's not good, because those can linger. But we are about 5-6 weeks away from the regular season. So if the Bengals take it easy on him, make sure that he rests it, and if this training staff can, prove their worth after so many issues with players, it'd be nice to see him return and be healthy and not have this thing linger around here. Ace Plemons says 2020 is when Coach Taylor will start to get things done the way he wants. We'll see. I think there's a lot of things right now that he's trying to put his stamp on things with his coaching staff and all that kind of stuff. But as of now, there are still a lot of things. Mike Brown earlier this week talked, in the opening luncheon for training camp that they do annually. He talked with some reporters, and he kind of said basically that he and Zach Taylor and a lot of the front office staff basically have a daily meeting. So they are very intimately involved in still the operations of the Bengals, and not that we thought that they weren't, but they didn't fully give over the keys to the castle to Zach Taylor. I'm sure they let him, have a lot of free reign, but I think he's going to need to build that equity, if you will, with the franchise, and that comes in wins, that comes in obviously his own charisma, that sort of thing. It's kind of what Marvin Lewis was able to do over years and years with the Bengals. So we'll see. Matthew, Sean, AJ, okay, just tuned in. We think he is. Just to kind of recap, AJ Green came down on his ankle awkwardly. It sounded like it was on a deep pass. Ray Kirkpatrick was in coverage. There's a little bit of bumping going on there, but it wasn't the fault of Dre Kirkpatrick by any means. He just kind of came down on it awkwardly, I think AJ did, and it sounds like he sprained it. He was carted off the field. He was shown later on crutches, and the thing was bandaged and iced. So, some other reports say that he's okay. Ian Rappaport source says that it's a sprain. They're going to do an MRI, but they're pretty confident he's going to be okay. Joe Mixon spoke to Joe Daneman of the Cincinnati media and said he's pretty confident that AJ Green is okay as well. So things are looking, it could be a lot worse by the initial sounds of things. We still have yet to see. Obviously, we will bring you that news as it comes out. This is Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com and the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. In case you have not checked out our podcast, myself and fellow Cincy Jungle contributor John Sheeran are the hosts of that program, and you can get that show on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play, on Spotify. You can get it on the Megaphone platform as well as on YouTube, and then we stream it on Cincy Jungle as well. So please join us for our podcast. We're doing a lot of cool stuff, having some guests and everything. If you like what we do at Cincy Jungle and you are wanting a Bengals fan podcast, check us out. We appreciate it. This is, I guess we can talk about this before we get out of here. This is a comment from Matthew Sean. The quote, experts have us going 3-13. There has been a lot. Initially, it was the Bengals are going to be very bad. And then there was a little bit of rumblings from some of the media members saying, hey, this Bengals team could be sneaky good. Some of the guys on NFL Network and some others were giving them some love. And then now, even before this A.J. Green injury, kind of when the Jonah Williams and Clint Bowling news came out, it's a lot of predictions having the Bengals getting 3 wins. You saw today right away, obviously, because this is the world we live in, very knee-jerk reactionary. But Andy Benoit of Monday Morning Quarterback in the SI just tweeted out basically, without AJ Green, the Bengals have the worst offense in the NFL. I don't agree with that sentiment. I don't agree with the 3-13 sentiment. I don't see how this team got exponentially worse from the team that got 6 wins last year, and that team that got 6 wins last year had a backup quarterback, no AJ Green, all that kind of stuff. So I don't see this as a 3-13 team. I'm not saying playoffs either. This team has its flaws, most notably on the offensive line and at linebacker. Those are probably their biggest flaws. There are big question marks still at the quarterback position, both with the starter and the backups. The backups did not play well in minicamp. Andy Dalton has a lot to prove in this new system. He finally has an offensive-minded head coach. So, he's got a lot to prove this year. And there's a lot of moving parts here, but I do not see this as a 3-13 season. I've said that quite a bit. I could see this team, its ceiling being about 9 or 10 wins. I think they may be in that 8-win-ish range, but stranger things have happened. They've got some tough stretches of the schedule. They've got some easier stretches of the schedule. And, we sit here every year and everybody notes that, they think they know who the best teams are, and there's always a couple of teams that surprise. There are always a couple of teams that were supposed to be very good that end up not being very good. And there are a couple of teams that sneak into the playoffs that are not, they are not expected to do so. So, I think it's pretty silly to think that this team has suddenly gotten, exponentially worse by getting 6 wins last year and only getting 3 this year. I don't really understand the logic in that, unless you point to the inexperience of the staff, and that's a valid point. But even still, I don't see that. But we'll see how it all plays out. It's day 1 of training camp. There was a little bit of scary news, but it seems to be spinning into a positive bit of news. And we'll definitely keep you updated on cincyjungle.com and our Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your comments and questions. We're going to bring more of these videos to you as training camp continues and as the preseason evolves. And then obviously as we get into the regular season, we'll be getting you some more of these as well. So thanks for joining us again. I'm Anthony Cosenza. We'll see you next time. Keep it to cincyjungle.com and check out our podcast, The Orange and Black Insider, when you get a chance. Thanks.